Welcome to Westwinds Church and welcome to Westwinds Church Online. We're glad that you're with us today as we are in summer church. And man, it's felt like summer this last week, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
One day hot, one day humid, the whole bit.
It's been a rainforest this week.
It changes up our schedule. Instead of usually we have the two services, 9:30 and 11 o'clock, throughout July and August. It's one service at 10 o'clock out on the hill, out behind. Now, if you're watching this at the 10 o'clock hour right now, it's going on, and you're welcome to come. But we also know that you're probably watching online because either you're traveling or you're not able to come today. And we want you to know that you're welcome, and we value our online church as much as when we can see it in the flesh. Another thing we're adding to the mix of the 10 o'clock service is we're in the book of James. It's a series called Common. And in the book of James, we are realizing that the book of James is actually very short. And what we're doing is at 9:30, so we're reading all the way through it. And it only took, 12, 13 minutes last week.
Was it only that long?
I think it was
really
between 12 and 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah, the statistics were telling us about, 20 minutes. But if we got, short and sweet like that, heck, that's an easy listen.
What we do is at 9:30, if you come in the main entrance of the church, you can just take a left, and the first door on the left is our prayer room. And we're just sitting in the room, and one person reads it, and that's what we're doing at the 9:30 hour. And the intent of that is that's the way it would have originally been received by people. People didn't have copies of it. Someone would come, and sometimes they'd just read it from the scroll, or sometimes they'd done it enough, they'd memorized it, they'd put the scroll into their arm to say, this actually is from James, and they'd quote it.
And you were back there then to witness that, too.
Yeah, I saw it many times. Yeah. but the great thing is, last Sunday I went to the 9:30 one, and the reading, and you hear it different than you read it. And I haven't heard the book of James for us. So it was really good. And that'll go on every Sunday in July and August. July and August. Every Sunday at 9:30, we'll read the book of James. But the service is then at 10 o'clock. And if you're online and not in person, this is a resource we're using. I want Aaron to tell you about this. But this resource is also available online on the website or on the app. So this is really cool, man. I really like the way this turned out. It's really a useful tool for this summer.
Yeah, so the Common book, which is the name of the series as well, was the chicken or the egg? Was this the name first, or was the series the name first? I don't know. I don't think any of us really know. But you can actually get a copy of this digitally at westwinds.org/common, or if you're here with us in person, we have a bunch of these in person too that you can flip through. But yeah, what the first idea that really sparked this whole thing was we remembered that, from previous years that we've done summer church and outdoor church, we didn't really have a way to project lyrics for songs. And so we were like, well, how can we get, words in people's hands or in their eyes or whatever? How are we gonna help people kind of sing along with the songs easier? It's we could kind of put it on the phones. We could have an app that shows you the lyrics on your phone. But then, everybody's basically just doing this the whole, Sunday morning service, which actually is really hard to, engage with. So we're like, well, what if we made it, paper copy? Because that's so much better, I guess.
Yeah, try something new.
Yeah, let's try something new. But yeah, so something new, paper. That's fantastic. Yeah, so the whole idea was let's make a hymnal. And then, that kind of snowballed into a bunch of other fun stuff. So we got some cool illustrations in here. We've got prayers. We've got some, individual and group exercises you can go through. But really, this is just meant to be a resource that kind of keeps us all on the same page together. But one of my favorite things actually in this book is this page on page 10 called What is Wisdom? So it looks like this. And so it's just kind of one of the main topics we talk about for this James series that we're kind of planning to talk about with the summer is wisdom. In addition to the other two kind of big topics are faith and patience. These are all the three kind of touching points that James talks on a lot throughout the book of James. And wisdom specifically is sort of, I think it's often thought of as this ethereal, very heady, very hard to grasp thing, right? But then there's also, what people kind of call everyday wisdom or, life hacks or kind of things that just come with time and experience and, hard-earned truths, right? So one of the things we actually have this year is called our weekly wisdom sort of form. You can actually go to westwinds.org/weekly-wisdom. or you can, scan the QR code from the book here, and that'll actually take you to a place where you can share your wisdom with us. What are those life hacks, the thought-provoking nuggets of truth, like the things that, are kind of make you stop for a moment and just like consider, that's an interesting thought. So we'd love to hear from you. What are your life hacks? What are your weekly wisdom that you want to share with us? And we'll actually share that back with the community.
Yeah.
So I think one of the ones that we got this week was, some things are worth waiting for. You can put pizza rolls in a microwave, but if you wait and put them in an oven, it's so much better.
Which goes to wisdom and patience.
Yeah. So don't live a microwave life, I think was the buzz phrase.
And it can be something fun, but it can also be something, sometimes we have someone years ago said something to us and it always stuck with us,
Yeah.
And I remember hearing, I think it was an exercise guru on TV or something, said, a bad day for your ego is a good day for your soul. I thought that was cool. It's something, it's not like I haven't built my life on that, but when my ego's been wounded a little bit, I always remember that. So that's good stuff.
So I've heard through the proverbial grapevine that you're going to be talking about wisdom this week.
Yes.
So tell me more about what are your thoughts on wisdom, or at least what are James' thoughts on wisdom, since that's sort of the series, right?
Well, last week, Pastor Corey emphasized that wisdom is not something we earn or we manufacture or we study real hard, because it's not the same as knowledge. You can have a lot of knowledge. We all know people that have a lot of knowledge, but we wouldn't think of them as a wise person. We also know people who maybe don't have a formal education or anything like that, but you say, man, I talk to them, I learned so much, they're so wise. So we know it's not the same as knowledge. Yeah. So James says there's two different kinds of wisdom. And like you said, like the common wisdom, the common sense, I guess that's always a big value. I believe in common sense. Common sense is good. But there's also a wisdom that, the way James put it, is wisdom that comes from above. So he kind of talks about what is wisdom that comes from above. And what it is, it's like this really practical thing of, the biggest challenge in life is we know we're supposed to love everyone. How do you do that? So there's practical things like, there's one spot in the book of James where he says, you don't show favoritism. He says, what if you've gathered for church and somebody comes in and dressed the nice, you can tell they're really wealthy, and someone comes in and you can tell they don't have much. He said, if you give the one a good seat and the other one you don't, he said, that's wrong. That's practical stuff. And you go, I've done that in my life before. I've maybe given more attention to this person because of their status or something. And James saying, no.
Sure.
So it's real. The wisdom that is from above is something given to us. It's even called sometimes the spirit of wisdom that God gives to us, but it's not so that we can have a bank of knowledge. It's so that we know how to live, we know how to treat people. And then we find too that James, scholars disagree on this, but he may well be the actual brother of Jesus. Jesus had several siblings. And so if that's the case, it's not surprising at all that the words of James echo the words of Jesus. And what's cool about it is you can read the words of Jesus, read the words of James. They're saying the same thing, but you know how I heard it in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
You hear something
like
in a different
James
way.
reading that we do here.
Yeah, you hear something in a different way. You go, oh, that kind of connected and sank in. So today, this week, we're basically talking about two types of wisdom. What are two types of wisdom? And
what are the two types of wisdom, Phil?
The way he says it comes from above, that's given to us. And if I think I manufactured my own wisdom, he says one of the downfalls of that is arrogance. Oh. And if I think, well, I got this degree, or I got this degree, or I read this book, so I know all this stuff. There's actually a passage in Scripture that says that knowledge puffs up. In other words, puffs up the ego, but wisdom humbles us. And you and I, just as human nature, we're repelled by arrogance and we're attracted by humility. I mean, you don't say, we never say, oh, he's my favorite guy. I love that guy. He's so arrogant. I mean, we recoil from that. And the real wisdom humbles us, but does not humiliate us, humbles us in a way that we're grateful for what God's doing in our lives. So the source of the wisdom is what makes it different. Is it my manufacturing, or I deserve this, or is it, man, God's been good to me, and he showed me something this week that really helped me in my walk, or really helped me to reach a hand out to someone who is struggling, or really helped me in my marriage or my life with my kids. That's from above.
Yeah, and our passage this week, I think, is that same passage you were talking about. It's James 3:13 through 18. And I think I'm going to read it real quick for us here,
Yeah,
just so we kind of all get the full orator experience. Oratory. So here's James 3:13 through 18. Are any of you wise and understanding? Show that your actions are good with a humble lifestyle that comes from wisdom. However, if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, then stop bragging and living in ways that deny the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above. That's the phrase you were talking about. Instead, it is from the earth, natural and demonic. Ooh.
Pretty strong language.
Yeah, jeez. Wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and everything that is evil. What of the wisdom from above? First, it is pure, and then peaceful, gentle, obedient, filled with mercy and good actions, fair and genuine. Those who make peace sow the seeds of justice by their peaceful acts.
And what's kind of cool about that is, you've heard people talk about the Sermon on the Mount. That's in Matthew 5, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And if you read the Sermon on the Mount and read that passage, you're going to say, oh, these guys are on the same page. These guys, they're, so James is just, again, if he was the brother of Jesus, he's just saying, well, I got to tell you all that stuff I learned. And can you imagine that?
Yeah. Right.
So that's what's, and James had a lot of authority in the early days because you go just a couple decades after Jesus' life on earth, and most of the church had never seen Jesus in the flesh. So those who were closest to him, they wanted to hear, tell me about him. And James was one of those guys.
So I think what's interesting here is I'm seeing a direct correlation between the word wisdom, because wisdom is kind of a big part of this passage, right? Wisdom from above. And all the words it's being associated with are very, almost, they sound like passive or submissive, right? Because you've got peaceful, gentle, obedient. I mean, that's an interesting word to associate with wisdom, right? Filled with mercy and good actions, fair and genuine. Now, fair and genuine, we could all be like, oh yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah. But things like obedient and gentle, how does that stack up against what we might consider wisdom kind of in our broader everyday lives, when we think about wisdom? When you think of wisdom, what's the first thing you think of? If you're not thinking about, the scripture, for instance.
I think of, when I think of wisdom, I think of someone who has been so strong throughout their lives that they've allowed themselves to learn from those hard knocks. I think that's wise. So there's so I think some of the most powerful people on earth are the ones who can be gentle when they need to be gentle. There's a guy I really admired. He was a theologian and a real tall dude,
Oh, okay.
And if
I admire tall people as well.
Yeah,
I'm not
just
one of
tall,
them.
lanky. Yeah, I'm not one either. And he was a scholar and a brilliant people. But you'd look at him sometime when he was maybe around people, and he'd be that big tall frame. Would be down on his knees listening to a little kid talk. And you think, all these people want to talk to this brilliant man, and he wants to talk to this, and that's a wisdom.
I think Jesus talked about learning from children like that. Yeah.
Oh, we thought Fred Rogers made it up, right? But, although he did really good. He was a Jesus guy. I think, and when I think of people with wisdom, they're not people who've had it easy. They're people who have endured, and they've had strength and patience. That we'll talk about throughout this series. Doesn't mean like patience that I can't remember my password patience, but it's endurance. So I think of people, when I think of wise people, I don't think of weak people. I think they have the strength that they don't have to prove themselves. They can be gentle. They can be kind. They can, and that seems passive, but yet peacemaking is not something you let happen. It's something God does through you. So I think, and so when I think of that, I want to picture Jesus, and I think, the strength that he had, and yet people thought, well, he doesn't do it the way our nation does it. He's not beating people up. He's not calling us to, charge the city and kill people. He's doing it so different, and takes us a lifetime really to kind of. It's taken me a lifetime to understand what the scripture would then call the mind of Christ or the attitude of Christ. So I think that's wisdom.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I think for me, whenever I think of wisdom, I always have the picture of the guy with the beard who's on top of the mountain by himself, secluded, which is such an interesting thing because all the things I'm hearing you talk about, and as I'm reading this passage, it doesn't sound like any of what wisdom is or what it sort of what encapsulates wisdom has anything to do with being in solitude.
Right.
It doesn't seem to have anything to do at all with being like within your own kind of head, in this liminal in your inner space. Like it sounds like it's very much reaching out to something like other people or to the spirit. Or
in
whatever.
the Christian tradition, solitude is to hear from God so that your wisdom, God can use that wisdom in you. It's not you're hiding out from people until they can find you. And wisdom from God is not like if someone gave us right now, came here and gave us a real nugget of wisdom and left, we wouldn't go, I have no idea what that guy was talking about, because that's not wisdom. That's something else. But there'd be something about the way that connects with God and with you and me and with what we do. We'd go, oh, wow. Yeah, that's wisdom.
It's like something you can do. You can get your hands on.
Yeah, it's not esoteric. That and that's the whole image of the man on the mountain. Is he's going to give you a sentence that you now have to think about for 10 years. It's not that. Real wisdom is I'm able to love better this week because of the wisdom I gained maybe last week or last year, and maybe through suffering and maybe through a lot of pain. But it still is wisdom from above. Because some people go through horrendous times in their life and they come out bitter. Some people go through horrendous times and they come out wiser. What's the difference? Where that came from?
I would have never pinned those things against each other, but that's given me a lot to think about today.
So, and I think the thing I like too about our scriptures is that wisdom doesn't mean perfection. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it right all the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to act on my insights all the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, and it's a journey. And so I'm trying to learn in my later. I'm in Act 3, baby. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn to enjoy this journey. There might be. I'm trying to learn to enjoy this journey and not think, oh, have I got it right? Have I got it right? Have I got it right? And wisdom is one of the things I think the wisdom of God is teaching me to. We're on a journey here. You're going to be okay. You have to have it figured out. I'm a preacher. I think I have to have everything figured out. I haven't got anything figured out, Aaron.
Well, it sounds like sort of a counter-cultural or even just counter, mental and emotional thing to what I've been hearing, for most of my life. So I am excited to hear more about this because there will be more about this in the outdoor service that will be rebroadcasting later. So wherever you're watching today, whenever you're watching today, whether it's 10 a.m. on Sunday or 10 p.m. on Sunday, at 6 p.m. on every Sunday, whoever that speaker is that week, so it'll be Phil this week, there's going to be a repost of their message from that 10 o'clock service. So just because we have this segment here doesn't mean you're going to miss your message if that's what you were hoping to tune into today.
And you can watch it at any time.
And you can watch it anytime. That's the beauty of the internet.
You can actually wait till the end of the series and binge watch, but
but
you might not get as much out of it that way.
you might get lots of anxiety and confusion, or maybe you'll just become instantly enlightened.
There you go. And we won't have cliffhangers, so there won't be warnings that you're going to give things away. So anyway, hey, thanks, man.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Yep, sounds good. Stay tuned for more.